right. Looks like there's at least a couple girls online, so we're just waiting there now for everyone to be able to join. Sometimes it takes a moment. Right. So coming out of our very hectic month of Summer Summit, we're now in our math themed month of August, and we're here with Conrad Nichols, Director of Education, I believe the title is. Yeah,
That's right,
Zorbit's Math. So we're doing a little bit of a different thing this month in introducing you to an organization, and of course a role model here with us today. And hopefully you'll get a chance to play the Mathstoria game that Conrad is going to talk about. So with that, Conrad, can I ask you to tell us about yourself?
Yeah, I would love to. Really nice to meet you all. So I'm Conrad. I actually grew up in Vancouver, British Columbia, and lived here my whole life up until about 5 years ago when I moved to Newfoundland. When I moved to Newfoundland, that's when I actually first got hooked up with Zorbit's Math Adventure and the group that I'm currently still working with. Um, Funny though, just about a year and a half ago, I decided to move back to Vancouver to be closer to my family. And so I've actually been working remote for the last year and a half in Vancouver, British Columbia, but still with the group out in Newfoundland. So with the 4.5 hour time difference, I actually start my days quite early in the morning, but then I finish really early in the afternoon as well. So it's pretty nice.
That does sound great.
Yeah.
So you've been with them for a while. How did you actually come to this? What was the kind of career decisions that you took to get to this point?
My career has taken quite a interesting circuitous route to get to where it is right now. I actually started as a teacher here in Vancouver for 6 years. I taught. I originally did an undergrad degree in chemistry, thinking maybe I want to be a chemist, but there's something to do with science and with math that I'm really engaged with and I love. And so then I taught for 6 years after that, teaching high school science and math. And there's parts of it that really inspired me. I really loved developing resources for students. And I really loved creating lesson plans. But actually teaching in front of a classroom was something that I felt less inspired about. So I was trying to figure out how can I use this inspiration for design and for creation of mathematical resources in a way that I could still do it in the education system, but outside of schools. And that led me back actually to UBC to do a master's of math education, where I actually focused on game-based learning and technology. So this is all about the creation of educational resources that are online, like Zorbit's Math Adventure, that would let students be actually able to interact with their curriculum in a digital way without actually having to be in front of a classroom to teach. One of the biggest things actually that really pushed me in my career path was I decided on a whim while I was doing my master's degree to take a computer science class because it was something I was always kind of interested in, but I'd never really explored. So I took a first year computer science class. I was 30 years old in a classroom full of 19-year-olds. And I absolutely loved it. It was such a fascinating way to think about math and science in a very logical in a very logical way. And I've actually used my experience from that one computer science class to really springboard a lot of the rest of my career.
That's so interesting. I'm starting to hear that more and more. I know of now one of our role models who is an engineer. She says graphic design is this weird thing that she learned how to do that helps her like every day of her work life. And then another one who is also an engineer, I think electrical engineer. She gave us the tip that we should all be learning how to code if we want to get into STEM, regardless of what STEM, just get around the mindset of coding.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting point because I actually, in my job, I do almost no coding whatsoever. but I work with programmers who do coding every single day. And so when I do design work that I'll be passing on to the programmers, I need to have kind of an understanding of how they're going to go about implementing it and what they'll be having to think about when they're actually creating these things. And so me having an understanding of the world of programming and the world of code, even though I don't really know how to, has been really beneficial. More so that I can just talk their language and interact with, communicate with them clearly than me actually going in and doing the programming myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so if you kind of think back, was there any kind of hints that you might have ended up at this career? Like if you think back to your first career related position, in hindsight, are you going, of course, I'm going to end up in at Zorbit math?
Yeah, it's so funny because, to be perfectly honest, I went into university in my undergrad having no idea what I wanted to do. I took chemistry because I really like understanding how the world works and how all these like microscopic, like atom-sized pieces fit together in a way that makes sense in this really complex system. I thought that was just fascinating, but I knew I never wanted to be a scientist in a lab. Like that did not interest me. I loved thinking about like the rules of these really small systems and how they work together to make these environments that we live in today. And so looking back at that, I can see all sorts of linkages between um, like my inspiration for wanting to do chemistry and the game design work that I'm doing right now. Though at first glance, chemistry and game design feel like they have nothing in relation to each other at all.
Yeah, it's so interesting how it all really relates. So learning one thing can just kind of have that ripple effect for everyone. And we talk a lot about to just kind of encouraging the students to experiment beyond what they think that they're interested in. Because there's just so many career options out there. No one really knows them all.
And it's so interesting what aspects of a previous career you can take and apply to a new career as well. Like there's so many parts of that chemistry degree that I think about every single day at work doing game development, game design. So much like critical analysis. I do lots of data analysis as well. Lots of critical thinking and problem solving skills that I'm applying in my game design work. So even though I'm not really doing chemistry per se, I'm taking a lot of those skill sets and still applying them today.
Are there any specific skills that you have to put kind of that extra effort into to kind of continue your career trajectory?
Yeah. So there are lots of the design work that I do. I've had no background in whatsoever. Like my fine art skills are not really at a professional level yet. They're barely at an amateur level, I would say. They're enough to get across ideas, but not very much more. But more about like the design work of how to communicate an idea on a piece of paper and hand it to someone and have it really make sense to them. So thinking about graphic design and user experience design, these are parts of the career that I use a lot today that I never had any education in the past. So these are things that I've gone out of my way to really learn more about. Actually, I've got a book on my desk right here that I've been working my way through to really help me with some more of the academic side of that. And it's been really, really beneficial. And it is work that I need to do on my own, but it's work that helps me do my work even better and make what we're creating an even more important product.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Do you do any kind of professional development within like job sponsored or employer sponsored professional development outside of that textbook?
Yeah. Yes, I am. That's more on the leadership side of things is where I'm spending some of the job sponsored professional development. So in addition to being the director of education with Zorbit's Math Adventure, I'm also the lead for the entire game development team and the education team as well. And so this means that I meet with the CEO and with some of the other top people in the company to talk about company strategy, to talk about our road mapping and long-term vision for the company. And so I often do different leadership seminars or leadership professional development because I work with a lot of people. In the end, I've got 16 people in the entire team of people that I work with. And often I'm the one that people turn to ask questions of what's happening next and what do I need to know that's important for my job. Yes, being able to work with people has been a really huge benefit to my role.
Perfect. I want to put up more resources for the students actually on those sort of been in one of the professional developments I did actually it talked about it as being power skills, but more commonly known as soft skills.
Yeah.
So just to take a brief second to say that there is a new section on the feed loop system for the students that are watching called resources on the left-hand navigation bar. So we're starting to fill it out. The math one has a fair bit of content in it, but the other ones, including these kind of career development resources, including power skills, is yet to come, but you can watch that sidebar for those, that new some new resources for everyone. So a little plug there.
Yeah.
All right. So what makes your career path meaningful? Like, why did you continue down this path? You started as a teacher, but you clearly like doubled down on that.
Yeah, well, I've doubled down on aspects of education that I really love. So I think what was really meaningful to me was reflecting as I was a teacher about what parts of teaching really resonated with me. Because there's definitely some parts that didn't resonate with me. Managing a classroom full of people is really hard. When you have 20 grade 10 students all in a single class all together and they're at the end of a school day and they just want to go home, it's really hard to teach them chemistry. And that part I found really challenging for myself. But there's other parts of that teaching that really resonated with me. And so what's made my career meaningful has been taking the time to reflect on the current jobs that I'm working on and thinking about what parts of those I'd like to carry on with and what parts of those I'd really like to pursue. I've been really thankful that in my current position, I've been able to talk with the leader of the company, the CEO, and tell him what parts of my role that I'm really enjoying and what parts I'm struggling with. And we can usually work together to try and transform my position into ways that are best fit for me and that are still helping me learn and grow.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Just wondering, I guess, you went from being a teacher, generally kind of more female dominated a place of employment, to sort of more, I guess, tech sector tends to be a little more male dominated. Did you find any big difference yourself, or do you work with a lot of women?
Yeah, so it's interesting when I started up with the group that I'm working with now with Zorbit's Math Adventure, there was only 12 of us, and we worked in a very small office in a very unappealing part of St. John's, actually underneath an overpass, and I think there's only one woman on the entire team. Since then, we've actually really gone out of our way to think about diversity in the workplace. And to make sure that we are reaching out to as many people as we possibly can to consider them for working with us and making sure that we're talking to the right kinds of people to get resumes and to get job applicants. So today, there are on the game development team of 16, we have there's 4 different women who work with us, and like a large number of people of color as well. So we've really gone out of our way to make sure that diversity, equity, and inclusion are a core part of our job application process. But definitely, I remember when I took my first year computer science class as I was doing my master's of education, and you look around in the classroom and it is mostly men. I do think that that's changing though, and I do think that like my teacher was a woman as well, and I think there's a lot more women in that class than there would have been 5 or 10 years ago. So I do think that those demographics are changing.
Right. And yeah, I did notice, I was just kind of looking for it. You've got an amazing diversity and inclusion policy, I guess I could say, within the Mathstoria. I think that's where I found it. And you can just see all of the characters are so diverse and everything. It's just so important to have that, the policy in place, but for everyone to see themselves in these games and in the workplace.
It was really important to us as we were developing it, because for a while we were a bunch of white men who are developing something that we knew lots about. And so when you're doing that, you often have blinders on because you're creating something that you're familiar with yourself. And it's really easy to not go out of your way to think about other cultures and diverse ways of looking at the world. And so it's been a really important part of our own development process to make sure that we are being, just like very aware of the world and about who we're working with and how we're thinking about the challenges we're overcoming.
Would you have any advice for others to do that, whether they're the participants of this program or, well, I guess especially them, of how they should kind of take off those blinders or encourage others if they're kind of feeling put in a corner aside? How do they call out others? Any advice there? I know these are big questions, so I'm sorry if
Yeah.
I'm putting you on the spot a little.
One of the biggest questions that we asked ourselves was, whose voice are we missing in this group? When we were developing Zorbit's Math Adventure originally, we may have had, say, 6 Caucasian men who were all in the brainstorming room together. And when you look around and you ask yourself, whose voice are we missing? Well, so many people's voices. Women, for sure, like people of color, Indigenous people, people who aren't from Newfoundland was a big part. Like, we're creating something for all of Canada. And Newfoundland is such a unique place, and it's an island that's so far away from the rest of the mainland that unless you get some other Canadian voices in there, I'm living in British Columbia right now, and there's often like different cultural attitudes over here than there might be in Newfoundland as well. So just thinking about whose voice is missing right now and who can we reach out to get an even more diverse audience, or to get a more diverse input, sorry, was really important to us.
Yeah, a little bit of both. Once you have the diverse input, then the diverse audience might follow.
Definitely, yeah.
Right. Let's see, what do you see that as evolving a little bit? You said you're up to 4 women, did you say? Are you still at 12 to
So our whole company, or at least the Clockwork Fox, we're at 36 people in total now. I think we started at 12 just 6 years ago, so we've rapidly grown. There's 36 people. Many of them are on the business and sales side of the company, so creating marketing resources, reaching out to our customers, helping support them as they're actually using our product. But across the company, we have quite a diverse range of people from lots of different backgrounds, from lots of different places in Canada and throughout the world. We've got, like most notably right now, we've got a couple of work term students who are working with us who are both from Bangladesh. And it has been so much fun to work with them. They are brand new at computer science. They're actually just working up at MUN right now. And so they're brand new to computer science. And it's just been such a joy to work with them both because they're bringing some really different mindsets into our development process.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
It's just, I bet that just brings a whole lot of fresh air to your project too, to have that kind of stranger's eyes, right? If they're brand new to computer science and they sounds like they might be brand new to Canada. So
they are as well, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of input to give. Well, maybe you could tell us a little more about Zorbit. I know that you sort of started as a more so focusing on primary, like K-3, but you've got this new game starting up 4-6, so obviously expanding.
Yeah. So maybe I can start with Zorbit and K-3 a little bit and tell you about that. So when I first joined the company, actually 6 years ago now that I'm remembering it right, when I joined the company 6 years ago, we had just begun work on Zorbits, which is a kindergarten to grade 3 math video game for students. And the goal was that students could play this game and learn everything they need to know about math in grades kindergarten through to grade 3. That was a very lofty goal. Like, we really had our sights set high. Creating a curriculum-aligned game for all those different grades is a huge amount of content for us to do. And so we decided to really put it into the small little packages and piecemeal it out so that we could work on and really just focus in on one different area of the curriculum at a time. So to start with, we made a game that was just focused on numeracy for kindergarten students. That's it. And we released that and we saw what people's responses were, what they liked about it and what they didn't like about it. We took all of that information, we made the game better, and then we also expanded it out to geometry and we released that again. And then we got more people's feedback, had more kinds of data from everyone. Then we took it back to ourselves, iterated on these ideas even more, and then released kindergarten with geometry and measurement as well. So now we've got an even bigger package here of a game for people to play. And we kept on going through this cycle of releasing out small pieces of content in order for people to be able to give us feedback and to be able to change what we did in order to make it even more effective. It's one of the interesting things about technology and games in particular is that it's really, really, really hard to get it right the first time. And sometimes the only way to get it right is to do it lots of times and get tons of feedback from people. And so where we are with Mathstoria right now is kind of in that same approach. Again, we've got this really lofty goal. We want to create an entirely new game for grades 4 through 6. But we definitely can't do this all in one go. So right now, we're just making a prototype that is extremely focused and very small in scale, that's just focused on some of the core ideas that we want to try and get feedback on. And so we've got a game right now that has some basic gameplay elements that are set up in the world. It's got some basic mathematical models that are in it and some basic questions in it. But we'll take you through the general loop of the game that we want students to be able to focus on. So that's kind of where we are with Mathstoria right now. Eventually, we've got this grand vision for the entire game, including the whole narrative and the world and the characters that you're going to be meeting. As a bit of a spoiler, it's set in a post-apocalyptic wasteland that's being overrun by machines, and you need to use your hacking skills as well as your gardening skills to actually regrow and rewild the entire planet while taking down these evil machines. So it's been a lot of fun to work on this very creative aspect of this project.
The artwork looks amazing, and just like, I don't know, give me a game that a character can plant some vegetables and I'm in anyway.
Yeah,
but
me too. The artwork has been such a huge focus of ours from the beginning. And it's one of the things that we took the time to get right in Zorbits. One of the things we noticed when we were looking at other educational games that are also doing something similar is that the game side of it is not very advanced. For example, lots of educational games, you might be playing as a wizard and you want to, shoot a fireball spell. Well, if you want to shoot a fireball spell, you get a question that pops up in front of you. And you have to answer the math question first. And once you answer the math question, then you get to shoot your fireball spell. And that whole kind of flow, it really makes it feel like math is an obstacle that gets in the way of having fun. It makes it feel like it's always a burden that you have to answer these math questions. And that's really not the kind of attitude that we want to give across. Like, I love math. I don't know if that's come across today, but I think math is great. I'd love it for students to also have that same kind of joy with doing math. Just treating it like an obstacle that gets in your way is definitely not going to help accomplish that. What if we could turn that on its head and instead of think of math as like a means to help overcome different challenges? So what if you run into a character in the world and they've got a challenge and the only way to solve that challenge is with your own math skills? That's the way we want to look at it, where math is as an ally that you can use instead of an obstacle that gets in the way.
Oh, I love that. That's quite innovative, really. 'Cause I definitely grew up with those computer games that were just, math was just an extra, obstacle. That's the right way of putting it.
Yeah.
So the girls will actually be able to help you this month, hey? I mean, they're junior high and high school, but that only means that they should be able to help you a little more in troubleshooting.
Definitely, yeah. So we have put together a prototype of some of like the really basic fundamental ideas of Mathstoria. And I'd love to show you it a little bit later on as well, or whenever we're ready to do it. And I'll share out the link with everyone, and so you can try it on your own time. I've also got a little Google form that I'd like to share out as well, so I can get some feedback from you all. But at this stage of development, really, it's again all focused about us creating some really small idea, putting it out in the world to see what people think of it, taking some of that feedback back in, and then making that small idea even better. based on everyone's feedback. So that's where the stage we're at right now. And that's really where you all can help out, to give us a better sense of what you like and what you don't like about Mathstoria.
That sounds great. I think you could share your presentation if you like, if you're ready for it, or is there
Yeah, sure
anything that
thing.
you thought we would touch on that you did want to cover off in terms of maybe advice for anyone going down a math career path?
Yeah, I guess maybe one other thing I'd say about careers is that um, looking back at my career, there's a lot of moments that feel serendipitous, like very lucky to have come across them. Like I feel very lucky to have taken this computer science class that just happened to work really well in my schedule. Or I feel very lucky to have finished my undergraduate degree and to have found a tutoring job, which eventually let me teach. Um, Sometimes these things at the moment, they don't feel like they're really well planned out. And maybe they aren't really well planned out, but looking back at these moments, I realized that I've set myself up for success in all of these moments by working really hard and by reflecting on what are the things that I really enjoy and what I want to pursue. And so these lucky moments, maybe it's not so much luck as it is like my own luck that I've created for myself. Um, the way that I got my job with Zorbit's Math Adventure is quite a funny story. And it also feels like one of those lucky moments because I was living in Vancouver at the time and my partner was living here as well. She had just finished her residency degree, or sorry, her medical degree and was about to enter into residency. But her last position that she had to take was in Newfoundland. And so she was working for 1 month in Newfoundland, decided to take a swing dancing class one night, met a programmer who happened to work on a math video game. And so she hooked me up with him on Facebook. We talked about math video games because I was studying that in my master's degree. And one thing led to another. And we decided, hey, let's sell everything we own and move to Newfoundland and just try this out. This seems like a crazy plan, but we sold everything we owned, put it into a car and drove 7,000 kilometers across the country. She was able to start up her residency. I was able to start a job with an amazing company. And it just, again, it was that moment of serendipity, but it wouldn't have worked unless all of this effort had been put into like putting myself where I am today.
Wow. Wow, that is bananas. Let's just drive across the country and make a math video game. But
Yeah.
this is it. Like careers aren't created until you get there. That's so like this is what I'm finding too, is you have so much control even once you get hired of what you'll actually do with your job and what you'll make it. And
Yeah. I grew up with this idea that you always had to know like what career you're going into 5 years or 10 years from now. And that once you choose a career, you should probably stick with that so you can keep on growing in that one direction and really, dial down that skill set. But I'm realizing with my career, like I did a degree in chemistry, I taught high school science for a while, then I did a degree in math, game-based learning, and now I'm doing elementary mathematics and game design. Like those four things don't seem too related, but to me, it feels like this really slow building arc of ideas that are all coalescing together and really building on top of each other. And so while I don't have like I'm not like a doctor or a lawyer and I'm just doing this one thing, still all of these ideas are coming together to build a really very robust skill set for myself.
yeah, absolutely. You can do anything when you have those building blocks, right?
Yeah.
We had a role model during summer summit and her saying and once again I feel like I hear this from so many role models, they don't have this career path that's like A to B to C. It's like A to B to K to J to Q, like it's all over
Yeah.
the place. But her little motto is trust the wind.
Love that. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've
I'm
kept
I'm
that one
some
in mind.
I'm sometimes jealous of my partner. She's a physician, and I just know that from here on out, her career path is like very well defined. She's got so many options that she can avail of, and it feels very straightforward. That makes me feel jealous sometimes, but I'm also feel really open to the idea that mine is like much more fluid, and I can go with the wind. I've got a very interesting and diverse skill set now that will let me fit into lots of different places in the world, instead of say just being in medicine. So I'm actually she might be a little bit jealous of me at this point.
Yeah, this is a misconception that I've learned that I have had myself, is that like an arts degree lets you have that openness and cast your net wide and do that. But since I've been doing these interviews with role models, and you're STEM and all of my role models are STEM, and they're having the same experiences. I have a master of arts,
Hmm.
but that's what I came from, was an arts degree is what lets you be creative, but clearly that's not exclusively true.
Yeah. One of the things we talk about at work is, instead of STEM, thinking of it as STEAM. Are you familiar with STEAM? Yeah, where
Yes.
you throw in arts into the middle of STEM as well. And it's interesting looking back at that as well, because you asked earlier about what's one area of my career where I've had to put a lot of effort and focus into, and it has been that art side, because I've never done any academic work in that arts field. And so taking some time on my own to really dig into the A part of the STEAM has been really helpful for myself.
Yeah, there's certainly a place for arts within every letter of STEM, is how we kind of look at it. We keep it to STEM, just in order, I guess, to kind of narrow it down of who it is that we're trying to interview for these things. But it's not to erase the A, it's
Yeah,
to highlight it within every letter, not separately.
I like that. Yeah,
Yeah. So if you're ready, we might have a look at that presentation.
I would love that. Yeah. Great. Can you see this here?
I can, yes.
Perfect. Oops. So Mathstoria, this is, yeah, a brand new experience that we're creating for grades 4 to 6. I'd love to show you around a little bit about where we are right now and how things look. And then I guess I'll finish this off. I'll show you the Google form that I've created, and how to get to the actual prototype itself.
Perfect.
So we talked a little bit about what our development cycle looks like as we're actually creating these educational resources, these technology resources, where we're initially designing some really small idea and building that thing to create a prototype of it. And then we're immediately right afterwards testing and evaluating it before going back to the design room to see what worked and what didn't work. And so right now, again, we've created this prototype, and that's where you can all come in, where you can help test and evaluate and see what's working well with it. We've gone through this cycle a number of times already. We've already done, I think, like 7 or 8 playtests, and are really starting to hone down exactly what's working and what's not working with Mathstoria. I also wanted to share a short intro video that will give you a bit of a sense of what the world is like and who the characters are. So this is just about a minute long. And Trina, maybe you can give me a thumbs up if you can hear the audio when I press play here.
This is Mathstoria. I'll admit, it's seen better days. It used to be so beautiful, and it was home to my people, the Pythagoreans. It gave us everything we needed, and what we could, we gave back. Then, we built these robots to help us. We called them Primebots. It worked for a while, but it got totally out of control. They devoured everything they could find, and then they started turning against us. We had created a monster. So we gathered everyone together and fled to the only place where we were safe from the primes, space. For years now, we've been orbiting around our home planet, planning our return. Now they tell me they have a plan. Get this, they've been training this one kid who's somehow supposed to go back, defeat the primes, and save Mathstoria. How? I don't know. I'm just the help. No pressure, right?
So you can see great evidence here of the very detailed hi-fi art that we've created. Because again, we're at the very early stages of development. It's actually not worth our time right now creating really high fidelity art to put into a cutscene like this. More so, we want to get people's feedback on what they think about this so far. And so that's going to be the best use of our time. Let's try and capture an emotion or experience and get people's feedback on that before we really go in and create fantastic pieces of artwork.
This.
So what does the prototype look like now? It's changed a lot as we keep on working on it. This is what it looked like about 2 months ago, which is, well, it could use a bit of work. It's kept on changing very rapidly, though, as we keep on making new improvements to it, slowly fleshing out exactly what we want things to look like and how we want it to behave, until we land on something more like this on the bottom right, which has got, again, a lot more polish into the artwork. And now that we've gone through several different cycles of getting people's feedback, we can start to get a better idea of what we want things to look like and how we want it to behave. In the prototype itself, you play as this unnamed character, and he's got an ecobot little friend. And so our goal is to help rebuild the ecosystem and the Pythagorean civilization. But these toxic prime bots here, they're surrounded by all this corrupted ground. And our only way to tackle them is to actually clean up the junk that's in the environment and to try and dismantle these primes. So our first goal is to gather enough junk to defeat these primes. We've got junk, all these little gears that are scattered throughout the world. So you can use your ecobot to highlight an area, and he'll actually clean up all the pieces of junk in that specific place. But he only has so much charge that he has, and so we'll have to keep on charging them up as we use the ecobot. Luckily, we've got these charging crystals that are around. Actually, in the prototype that you'll be playing, these charging crystals have changed to something else, but you'll get to experience that yourself. So you can recharge your mech with these charging crystals. And so the mech actually plugs into the charging crystals and reboots its mainframe by actually taking some of the charge from it through the form of these math questions. Once we've got lots of charge, you can clean up an even greater area and get more of these pieces of junk. And once you've got enough junk, then you can start tackling the primes. So this prime needs to create a sum of 59 somehow. Once we start trying to battle the prime, it's up to us to somehow create this 59. All the pieces of junk that you've collected so far are the numbers of 0 to 9, as well as the 4 different operations. You need to somehow create an equation that will equal 59 by filling in all these blanks. So one way to do that would be saying 2 plus 57. That would be one answer, but there's lots and lots of different answers here to try and work out. And depending on what junk you've collected already, it might be easier or more challenging for you. So it's up to you to decide if you can tackle it or not. Another answer, much more complicated one, could be 22 times 2 plus 15. So that's 44 plus an extra 15 to make that 59. So there's lots of different ways, again, that you could try and tackle these. But once we've hacked our way into the prime, its force field is deactivated. Now we have to hack right into it. And this is all through the language of mathematics. And so we're going to be modeling things using different models, as well as number lines and base 10 blocks to try and hack our way into the prime. Once it is defeated, however, all of the corrupted ground around it turns back into the lush environment that it used to be. So the corrupted trees, like this purple one that you can see on the left-hand side, that'll suddenly regrow into a much more lush world like we see on the right-hand side. And Trina, you'll like this last part as well, because in an upcoming update, you're going to get the chance to actually plant new trees and plant new seeds and watch them grow yourself by making your own garden and by rewilding the entire ecosystem.
Awesome.
So this one little screen that I'm looking at here, that's actually just a zoomed in version of one of the maps that you're going to be working on. So the maps are quite large in scale, and there's going to be lots and lots of work to do for players as they're coming through.
That's so excellent. So I've got, I guess, two questions. One directly about the game. I did see a couple question marks there. So you have obviously help within the game. If the girls are struggling with one of the questions, are they able to kind of get some assistance along the way?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways we're thinking of giving players assistance. Right now, the only way they get assistance is if they get a question wrong. Then there'll be some feedback to them saying what you could do about it better next time. So maybe you answered, your answer was too large, so we'll say you need to make a slightly smaller answer. Or maybe we can do something more specific, like saying you need to use fewer base 10 blocks, or think about the strategy in a specific way. One of the other ways we'd like to do it, though, is to give students the ability to ask for hints whenever they want to. So maybe they can click on a question mark button and get help on their next step before they have to make a mistake. Sometimes making mistakes, it is a bit of a negative experience. You're being told that you're wrong. And so instead of having to be told you're wrong, you could preempt that and ask for some advice instead.
Nice. That's a nice twist on it for sure. Ultimately, are these games available individually, or is it something that schools or teachers have to sign up for?
Right now, it's mostly schools and teachers signing up for them. We do have some parents who have bought it for their children, but that's not really the model that our company is trying to go for. Really, we're hoping to make more systemic change within the entire education system in Canada. And so the only way to do that and to reach out to lots of people is to go through the school system. So we're speaking with teachers, we're speaking with principals and with district leaders to try and tell them more about Zorbit and Mathstoria and about why we think it is such a great solution for their students to work with.
We've got a solid group of participants, and we've heard a lot from their guardians as well. I know that you have a Google form for them to get in contact with you and kind of fill out some survey information. Will it be helpful, I guess, to get some feedback from the guardians as well in terms of kind of, I don't know, sometimes having a positive word to send on to teachers?
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, to be able to talk to some of the teachers. Well, what's one of the unique things that we're working with in Newfoundland actually is that the Ministry of Education within Newfoundland has purchased Zorbit for the entire province. So every student and teacher should have access to Zorbits today. And what that would also mean is that as soon as we put out Mathstoria, they'll also all get access to that. But right now it's not even released yet. No one has really seen it except for a couple people and except for you coming up, which is really exciting. And so as soon as it is released, then I think everyone in Newfoundland will definitely get access to it right away.
Within the age groups.
Within the age groups, that's right. Yeah.
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 Are you going to be working on something for, I know this is down the road, mind you, but in that bigger long-term plan, is there anything coming for junior high and above?
It's a really good question. We've often talked about whether we want to specialize in K-6 and maybe work on science next, or maybe do an entire game focused around coding in K-6, or also maybe focus in on language arts. These are all really interesting options, or maybe we take our expertise in math and actually spread that out and go over to these higher and higher grades. What's been really interesting for us is when we're working with K-3 students, K-3 students, they're watching like Peppa Pig and Paw Patrol on TV, and that's the entertainment that they go for. But when we work with grades 4 to 6 students, they're playing Call of Duty and Fortnite, and all of a sudden it is so rapidly different. And so again, if we go up to grade 8, for example, all of a sudden, again, the interests of grade 8 students is very, very different than what we're seeing previous. So we're keeping on having to adapt how we think about development and what people are interested in. And that's, again, why these feedback sessions are so important.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I know we talked about at least there being sort of graphic designers on your teams and coders. Is there any kind of, I guess, surprising member of your team in terms of their background?
Ooh, good question. Yeah, definitely. Well, one of the, I guess about 3 years ago, we had a student who was they were a computer science student at MUN. No, I think they were an artist at MUN, actually. They were an artist at MUN who was interested in game development and tried their hand at becoming a work term student with us. We didn't actually need any artists at the time, and so they signed up for a QA position, which is a quality assurance position. They're the ones who are looking for any bugs that we might come across in the game and helping to guide programmers and designers to fix those bugs. But they had such a great attitude and such a great mindset the entire time they were working with us that actually when they went back to school, they kind of changed courses and then ended up taking a game design course instead. And so, yeah, they were at, where did they go? They went to Sheridan, to Sheridan. and did a game design course there instead. They've actually just graduated recently and have since joined back up with our team as a full-time position now as a game designer instead of as a QA artist or as an artist, which is where they originally started.
They're a lifer for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, there's another educator on the team who taught for 7 years in Dubai, of all places. And so he taught for 7 years in Dubai with his family. And before coming back to Canada, he had some interest in computer science, but didn't really know how it could fit into his career as a teacher. Decided to take some computer science courses up at MUN. Ended up finishing his BSc in computer science on the side while he was still teaching full time. And actually, since then, he's joined up with us as an educational designer as well. So also a really interesting kind of circuitous path to arrive here.
Right.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah, so I guess the final piece of this is how do the girls, I assume there's going to be a link that I can share, and I'm going to share, of course, your link to the Google form for them to be able to give you feedback along the way.
Yeah, so the Google form has, it's got a couple of questions just about yourselves. I'd love to learn a bit more about like, hey, do you play video games? If so, like, what are your favorite games? How much do you like math? Is one of the questions. And no offense taken if you don't like math, that's totally okay. Math is something that sometimes grows on you over time. But I truly believe that no one is not a math person. Everyone's a math person. Sometimes you just don't know it yet, and we all appreciate math in different ways. Then there's also some feedback about the playtest as well. So in this section, I do have a link here to the actual playtest itself. Trina, if that would be easier, I could actually extract that and send that to you separately so it's not inside the Google form. But otherwise, it's right inside here, as well as some questions about what are your favorite parts, what didn't resonate with you, what were you trying to accomplish, what was your goal, is there any other feedback you'd like to give us, and some other questions about this as well.
Excellent. Is there a timeline that they will have to play with this? Like, when would you like the feedback? Or when will their access kind of drop?
The access actually won't drop because we don't have a system set up to make it drop. And so you've got access as long as you want at this point. But it's only of this version of the prototype. So unfortunately, this version will never get better. It's just where it is right now because we'll keep on making new versions of the prototype. But you have access as long as you want. If we get feedback actually by the end of the week, it's a Monday today. So if there's some feedback by Friday, that would be really lovely. I'd love to take a look at that.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll definitely push that out through the announcements and everything to hopefully get the feedback in for you. Should the girls kind of do this as a one sitting, or should they be taking a couple evenings?
Yeah, so something you'll almost certainly run into are bugs in the game. There's definitely things that don't work. They don't work the way we want them to, and they also just don't work, I should say. Like sometimes you'll click on something and the game might entirely crash. That's just where we are in terms of development right now. We actually haven't put too much time into trying to fix the bugs yet. We're more putting our time into seeing if we can get the ideas really well communicated. And so if you run into some bugs, that's going to happen. I'm sorry, we'll have to work around that. But actually, sorry, what was your original question again?
Whether this is something that you imagine them doing as one sitting, or maybe they pick at throughout the week.
That's why I brought that up, because if the game does crash, it might be frustrating and you can close it down for them. You can do it over a couple settings if you like, or if you're able to play for a little while in one full setting, that would totally work as well. There is not very much content in the game so far, and so you might actually be able to finish everything that's in the game within an hour. And it may not take you very long to do.
So the main feedback you're looking for, if I'm understanding, is kind of how the game is communicating, if they're understanding what to do, not necessarily that this link doesn't work.
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. Like if something crashes on you, it's still helpful feedback, but it's less than what we're looking for. It's more like, what parts were your favorite to interact with, or what was your least favorite element that was in the game? Did you not like any of the characters, or did you not like any of the actions that you had to take?
Awesome. And the girls can communicate with each other within Feed Loop. So I'd like to encourage them to do so if they want to share amongst themselves how they're doing with it, or what their favorite parts are amongst each other. I hope that's okay with you.
That sounds perfect. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we've nearly reached our hour marker. Is there anything else that we wanted to touch on, or perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about maybe what the labor market outlook you think is in this sector?
Watching how video games have changed over the last 15 years has been absolutely fascinating to me. Right now, video games gross more than any other entertainment industry, more than movies, more than music, more than anything else. It is just unbelievable. Everyone has a phone to play video games with. So many people have computers. Tons of people are getting VR headsets now. Lots of people have consoles at home. They are absolutely ubiquitous, and this is not a sector that's going away anytime soon. In fact, if nothing else, it's really just exploding, and there's so much demand for it. I think tech in general is a really great place to think about. There is so many varieties of careers that you can take, from really creative ones like mine, where I do a lot of creative problem solving all day long, and I actually don't do very much. I don't do any coding. But you could also do something radically different, which is, very much focused on hard technical skills and do lots of programming and coding, if that's something that's inspiring to you. So there's lots of different avenues within technology that I think are really relevant to lots of people.
Excellent. And I know we have a tech contest coming up actually with Leslie Chart this autumn happening. Registration is going to be October, and I believe now we've moved the contest itself to November, where the girls will actually have a chance to build their own app. So
amazing. Yeah.
There'll be more coming up for them on this kind of stuff in the near future. So lots to come. And I thank you so much for spending this hour with us and giving the students a chance to actually play with Mathstoria, and hopefully give you feedback, and that'll improve your game as well. And I'm sure hopefully there is uptake, and if there is, hopefully we can circle back around to this and help you again with future prototypes.
That'd be really fun. Yeah, thanks so much. It was really a pleasure to meet you all and to speak with you, Trina.
Right. Have a wonderful day, everyone. It is beautiful here. So I hope it's beautiful where everyone is today. Go enjoy it, and then come back and play Mathstoria.